Scarlett Blade. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Silent Night, Memoirs of a Royal Guard, Chapter 27. Miley Hooves, seriously? I called up. Miley clung to the chandelier as it rocked slowly back and forth at the top of Princess Luna's chambers. I'm sorry, Sergeant, she called back up. I flapped my wings, flew up, and offered her my hooves. She chose not to take them and instead hopped off of the wrought iron and crystal fixture while throwing her own around my neck. I grunted, caught her, and slowly brought her to the ground. How? There was a mouse. I jumped, she replied honestly. I looked at her, then up in the chandelier. That had to be some kind of Earth Pony record. You're afraid of mice? I asked, but you'd fight a changeling. We all have our weaknesses, Sergeant. Okay, fair enough. Back to work, okay? I ordered and she nodded. Shaking my head, I returned to my seat at the secretary's desk. Princess Luna was in her seating area with Crystal Wishes, and they were both catching up with iridescence. She was off duty, and the group had a lot to talk about. I wasn't paying attention. Call it a professional talent. I went back to drawing. Occasionally I drew Miley, but to be fair, most of my drawings of her were documenting the pony's bad luck. I had drawn her stuck in the couch, stuck in the door, stuck in the... Well, let me just say she got stuck in a lot of things. Today, however, it was Crystal's turn. I had probably been paying a bit too much attention to her lately. She was nice to me and very easy on the eyes. Her barn door didn't seem to swing my way, and Velvet Step was one of my friends, so thinking that way was a little awkward. It was still okay to look, though. The door to Princess Luna's chambers opened, and Lieutenant Hayes walked in without knocking. Miley and I straightened to attention. He looked at me and then proceeded to advance to the princess. Sir, can I help you? I asked, stepping around the desk and blocking him. The lieutenant looked down his snout and at me and said, I wish to speak to the princess. The princess has an appointment right now, sir. If you like, I can look at her schedule and find an appropriate time, I suggested. Lieutenant Hayes says, Sergeant, you work for me, not her. You do not keep her schedule, and you're not her secretary. Act like a royal guard, now move. Yes, sir. I moved out of the way and allowed him to pass. He walked right up to the princess and lightly bowed. Princess, I would like to discuss the state of your house guard now, and some suggestions on how to improve it. Crystal Wishes and Iridescence stared at him wide-eyed as he trotted right over their conversation. Princess Luna stood up, her regal mane shimmering like in the evening sky. Of course, Lieutenant, she started. As you can see, however, I have an appointment right now. If you'll check with Sergeant Knight, I'm certain he can find an opening for you. As I'm sure you're aware, he receives a copy of my schedule every day, so he can best leverage our security assets. The lieutenant took a step back. Princess, I think it would be best... We all caught the look Princess Luna gave him at that moment, and he took more steps back. Yes, I think that would be best, he amended before hastily retreating. Sergeant, put me in the next available opening, please, he called as he sailed by me on his way out of the room. Yes, sir, I called before opening up Princess Luna's scheduling book. Silent Night? Princess Luna called. Yes, Princess. We shall not have any more openings for at least a week, she remarked, her voice booming in the room. Aye, aye, Princess, I said, and started flipping through the book, feeling a little smug. I passed up several openings and penciled the lieutenant in for 15 minutes, 3 weeks from the day. I muttered as I looked down where I had written his name. I know who I work for. Do you, you pompous griffinflank? What, Sergeant? Miley asked. I looked up and around. Had that been out loud? Oh, it had. I had 4 mares staring at me. Quietly I closed the princess's scheduling book and softly clapped my hoofs together. Flank! Miley! Always go for the flank when engaging a griffin. Wound their pride first. I said before returning to my art project. The heavy bag loomed in front of me. I stood up on my hind legs and flapped my wings to help keep me upright, quickly starting to batter it with my front hooves, working on my boxing skills. It was a great workout, and I really liked the cut loose. Is the lieutenant just a jerk, or is he really as dumb as he seems? Iridescence asked me. We were off duty, but bad-mouthing an officer wasn't a great idea in general, even if every word was true. He's new, I panted, and continued to hit the bag. Winterspear was next to Iridescence doing yoga with her. The two had gotten along fairly well after an intense, "How could you do that to my little brother?" conversation. My sister said that is code for huge griffin rump, so evidently she wasn't worried about bad-mouthing somebody else's officer. He sucks all the fun out of the room, Iridescence said, holding an impossible pose. She had one hoof down, one tucked against her thigh, and her other 4 hooves pressed together. When is the captain getting back from his honeymoon? I dropped down to all fours and went over to the standing targets. Lining them up, I started bucking them fiercely. 3 days. I huffed each time my back hooves landed. I hope shining armor sets him straight. He certainly turned you around, Iridescence said in my direction. My eyes narrowed in the glare before I bucked the targets harder. That went a bit longer before I felt like I'd worked hard enough. Grabbing some water, I came over to the two and laid down on the edge of their mats, while both of them stared at me upside down. They had managed to get their 4 hooves behind their heads, and their hind hooves were stiff and straight up in the air. They looked ridiculous, and were not very complimentary. I could push you over right now, I teased Winterspear. You had best not. I like her better than you, Iridescence said. Mares, I huffed before getting up and heading to the showers. My shower had run a little long. I had been enjoying the feel of hot water on sore muscles. There wouldn't be time for a proper lunch, but Princess Suna kept snacks in her chambers. Quickly I trotted down the hall and made a quick right and crashed right into another guard. Ow! The mare exclaimed. Her coat was the same color as gold, and she had the most cheerful colored yellow and orange mane. Quickly I helped her up and stood at attention. I'm sorry, Lieutenant. I wasn't being mindful. Sunny Day, the lieutenant that replaced Astral Dyke, was what ponies call a perpetual optimist. She was always happy, positive, and cheerful. The word around the palace was that she was also an amazing officer and always took her job all the way. She waved a hoof. Oh, you're fine, Silent Night. I wasn't looking where I was going anyway. I just needed to get some air. I remained at attention and nodded. Then I tilted my head. Air, ma'am? Down in the gym and similar pony sweat-soaked areas? The unicorn laughed, her nose scrunched up a bit. Figure of speech, Sergeant. Her voice lowered. She looked around to see if there was any pony in earshot and then leaned in. Your lieutenant is frustrating and doesn't understand what collaboration means. We have an event that includes both princesses soon, and he is insisting that we each do our own security plan. That doesn't make sense, ma'am, I said. If we did that, we'd have guards stumbling over each other. Good luck getting him to see it that way, was her reply but then she smiled. I shall endeavor to do so, however. He will see the light, or I'll go tattle on him. Cheerfully she trotted down the hall while I remained at attention. Real guards typically don't prance, but I'm confident that was the only way Sunny Day moved. The day before Shining Armor was supposed to return home, I was standing with my squad at our morning meeting. We were just about to rotate off with Sergeant Orchid's squad, and I wanted to get them briefed. Before I could get started, Lieutenant Hayes walked in. We all stood at attention immediately. Listen up, ponies, he called. I just learned through a friend at the Command Intelligence Group that there is a dragon located near Canterlot. The brass is worried, and I want first crack at the beast. We'll be heading out immediately to handle it. Sir, Command has assigned us to this duty? I asked. What? No. I just said I learned it from a friend. we'll be able to get down there and show initiative," he explained. I nodded. "So you want all of us to go with you, sir?" "Yes, this is a dragon. Every one of you." "To clarify, you're ordering every one of us to leave with you to engage the dragon." The lieutenant looked at me like I was some kind of idiot. "Yes, Sergeant. You, me, all of these ponies, now." "I'm glad to hear you say that, sir," I said. "That's the spirit," he replied. I shifted to face him and stated matter-of-factly, "Lieutenant Hayes, I hereby relieve you of command." The lieutenant's jaw dropped. "On what grounds?" "Derelictions of duty, issuing illegal orders, misappropriating Royal Guard resources, conduct unbecoming an officer, inciting mass desertion, unnecessary endangerment, lives for personal gain." The lieutenant took a swing at me and I ducked. In one quick move, I punched him in the gut, then swept his legs out from under him. He collapsed, and while he was trying to catch his breath, I continued assaulting a fellow guard and anyone else I can find. "Miley, Harvest, take the lieutenant to the stockade while I do the paperwork. Night Frost, go inform Sergeant Orchid that I'm assuming command when the captain returns." There was a thunder of "Yes, Sergeant," and they all set off to do their tasks. The following morning I was working quietly in my office. There was a knock on the door, and then it opened immediately. Captain Shining Armor stepped in, and I rose to attention. "Welcome home, sir." "Thank you, Silent Knight. It was a great vacation, but I'm honestly glad to get back to work. Everything seems to be running smoothly. Where's the lieutenant?" "In the stockade, sir," I replied cheerfully. "All right, then," he said before slipping out and closing the door behind him. It was good to have the captain back. Not all of my charges against Lieutenant Hayes stuck, but the damage was done. Even though command has a way of protecting officers, Obsidian Hayes still spent more than 2 days in the stockade. It also became clear to every pony that he had questionable decision-making skills. The final straw was that Princess Luna just plain wasn't thrilled with him, and said so. As such, command gave him a nice quiet job commanding a supply depot somewhere out west. They also gave me a medal for being brave enough to stand up to him. All of that suited me fine. The captain was in my office again, and I had brought him up to speed with everything that had happened in his absence, both with my helmet on and off. "I wasn't even gone that long," he complained. "The palace never waits." Shining Armor nodded. "That is true. Listen, I'm going to go personally find a new lieutenant for the unit. I've made it abundantly clear to command that we will not be accepting another important pony's nephew, son, daughter, niece, or love foal. You need some pony that will fit with the culture. Until I find one, you're in charge." "Yes, sir," I said. He turned to leave and then paused. "Any issue with that putting iridescence under your authority?" He asked. "No, sir. That won't be an issue at all. The job stays first from now on," I assure him. The captain nodded, paused for a moment as if to say something, and then shrugged before he just left the office. Alone again, I started to straighten up my desk, a bit in preparation for being in command again. It was something I was starting to enjoy. Will we ever have a decent lieutenant that I could trust, I thought. "Knock, knock," came the cheerful voice of Sunny Day in my doorway. My body stiffened to attention. I replied, "Come in, ma'am. What can I do for you?" Sunny pranced in with an extra spring in her step. "Oh, you already did it. At ease, by the way." "Pardon?" I asked as I settled into a more casual stance, helping Lieutenant Hayes find a new position. I knew he was a silver spoon, arrogant son of a important pony, but I never guessed he would make such a rookie mistake, especially around a pony like you. With a flick of my tail, I asked, "A pony like me?" Sunnyday approached my desk and set her forehooves on it. She stood and looked down at me. "You're a tactician, Silent Knight. I've kept an eye on you. You're always 6 moves ahead." I wasn't exactly sure what to make of what she had said, or where she was going with it. "Thank you?" I replied curiously. "Yep." She practically chirped before hopping back down. "Well played, Sergeant. Looks like it is you and me again when it comes to joint meetings. Looking forward to it." "Yes, ma'am." My eyes followed her as she left. Peering down at the rock Runic had given me, I asked, "What was that about?" If the rock knew, it wasn't telling. Well then, I hope you guys have had a wunderbar day.